like, and subscribe. Those of you who are watching this video were attracted to it by the law of affinity. The law of affinity. Like attracts like. There will be, after I am passed on and gone, there will be those who will be attracted to my videos. You know, one of the funniest things that I thought that when I started this video, when I started doing these videos, I thought that I would have like thousands and thousands of subscribers because what I'm teaching is so real, it's so true, and I was just attracted to the knowledge in the Kabbalion after years and years of searching for truth. And I've noticed that some of my subscribers, they are trying to get other people. They can't understand why other people do not see the value in what I'm teaching as they do. But understand this, that Yahuwah, Jesus, he spoke to the multitude in parables, but he spoke to his disciples directly. And he didn't have 12 disciples. Out of all the multitude of people, he only had 82. And in teaching and educating people, I've come to understand this. You lead people to the spiritual waters, but you can't make them drink, and you're not supposed to try to make them drink. When the time comes when they are thirsty, then they will know where the water is. And this is the law of affinity. Now, like most things that have been touched by Caucasians, they changed the name of, and they try to take credit for what they themselves wish they could have passed on to the world. And in so doing, they always twist it up with their desires. They always twist it up with their desires because they're not spiritual people. And they don't have the character to be spiritual, so they add lies to it. But those of you who have found my channel, and those of you who are subscribers to my channel, are more than likely those who want truth and nothing but the truth. And if you've been following my channel, then you should be able to see through lies. But understand this. Lies create chaos, and those in power understand how spiritual philosophy can be used to control people. And to be perfectly truthful with you, the lies and false narratives that they create is what creates the matrix. And we are living, whether you believe it or not, in a matrix, an illusion. Part of the illusion is this. Yahuwah, as it states in the Bible, had white hair like lamb's wool, feet the color of burnt bronze. White hair symbolizing spirituality, feet the color of bronze means the earth. So what it means is that he was connected spiritually to earth. He was what is called in African spirituality, you could say for lack of a better word, a man God. So highly evolved, he became a man God. And he had powers, spiritual powers also. So understand this. The Matrix created racism. The people, the rich, created racism to divide people so that they can control. And if you've ever read the book Bacon's Rebellion, then you will understand why racism was created. To divide black people from white people so that the rich could gain control over all the resources on earth with the promise that they will give other white people a little bit more than what black people had, or to say that they're different, or to say that we're different. So I'm going to read you something. Okay. White imperialism is human hypocrisy. It supposes that there should be reverence and respect for those who have pale skin, lacking in melanin, never mind character, intelligence, wisdom, and value to life that a person brings about human evolution and all things that are of necessity to the survival of humanity. And things that are of necessity and survival of humanity, we can call these things, we can say that these things bring about order. The things that do not bring about order are evil and they create chaos. An example, racism creates what? Chaos. Wars. Feminism creates what? Chaos. It divides men from women. It creates chaos. Things that create chaos are evil because they do not lead to the evolution and survival of humanity. Order. In fact, white imperialism does not exist and never has. It is a false narrative that not include all those that are considered white. Because if it did, you would not have poor white people. And rich white people would not call poor white people white trash. Understand this. Nothing in this world is a coincidence. Everything, as the Kabbalion teaches, is a matter of cause and effect. People can control cause, which leads to certain effects, such as if you have 10 rats in a box, you put a small piece of cheese in there, you're going to be the cause of the effect of them doing what? Fighting for that piece of cheese, cause and effect. And that's in the Kabbalion. But we're going to use it, but we want to expand on it more. Now understand about the Kabbalion, which is really a book of, which is really the Comedian mystery system, or you could call it African spirituality. But just like Caucasians do, they usurp things and then they change the names of things to fit into their narrative so that they can exploit you. That's why the Bible says Yahshua had hair, the texture of lamb's wool, feet, the color of burnt bronze, and then they will tell you that there is no description of Yahuwah, who they call Jesus, in the Bible. And calling him Jesus doesn't make any sense because that is a Latino name. So they're telling you that a white Latino lived in Africa. That doesn't make any sense. But see, people who are that are of high spiritual integrity, that search for truth, they're going to question what is nonsensical, and they're going to search for truth. And it is those people that are going to be attracted to this channel. Now let me go on to say that evolution being the different planes of being on earth. Evolution is different planes of being on earth. Now, a plane is a place, and it's not a place. It's like this. You think back to the early before cars were invented. People were on horse and wagons. Now we're in a situation where we have cars. That is a different plane of being. That is a different plane of being caused by scientific evolution. And understand this, there is no difference between spirituality and science, because truth is the common denominator. So let me go on. Evolution being the different planes of being on earth that only those who search for truth are relative to and able to recognize and manifest. When you realize that the Bible is African history, and you realize that there is something underneath that African history, which is African spirituality, then you move to a higher plane of being. When you recognize hypocrisy and then you search for truth, that truth puts you on a higher plane of being. It's like this. It's like a person who, if a person who only knows addition is on a lower plane of being than a person who knows addition and subtraction. Planes of being exist within your mind. Then a person who knows addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, he's on a higher plane of being than the person who just knows addition. But then the person who knows algebra, he's on a different plane of being. Person who knows geometry, he's on a different plane of being, using math as an example. But then I can also use spiritual knowledge, the realization of the difference between what is considered evil and what is considered good. Evil is chaos. Good is order. Order that provides what? That provides stability and spiritual evolution. That is what is taught in the Kabbalion, but to a higher extent. When you reading the Bible is good, but what's even better is when you see the hypocrisies. See, when you understand the truth, then you recognize hypocrisies, and this leads to questions. And those questions will eventually lead to answers if you look without bias. If you look without bias, truth will lead to spiritual evolution. But if you're biased, if you want to believe that a person is better than me because their skin is white, you're not going anywhere. You're going to be stuck on stupid. Okay, now let me go on to say this, that repeating something. Evolution being the different planes of being on earth that only those who search for truth are relative to and able to recognize and manifest. Let me pause to say that hoping to be cured by a so-called therapist that is part of the social milieu is akin to thinking there is spiritual value and belonging to not a religion, or should I say, doing the same thing over and over and over again. Humanity must understand that these religions that we believe in have been falsified. And if we keep believing the same thing over and over and over again, we're not going to evolve. We're not going to change. We have to question these things. We have to question the people who are telling us these things and then look at what the results are. And now I'm going to talk particularly to African Americans. We were told that we were given Christianity, but this Christianity was used to enslave and colonize us. And as long as we call ourselves Christians, we will not evolve to a higher state of being. We will always have the mindset of a slave, a person to be abused. We have to change that. Once we realize that we are Hebrew Israelites, God's chosen people, then we can evolve. You can't say, I'm a Hebrew Israelite and I'm a Christian too. That's hypocrisy. You have to be who you are. You can't do the same thing over and over and over again and expect to free your mind. You can't think the same thing over and over again and free your mind. If you learn something, you must put it into practice. What you learn, you must become if you want to evolve spiritually. Any black person, and this is why Deuteronomy 23, verse 5, speaks out against homosexuality. It speaks out against homosexuality. But if you are a Christian and the head of the Christian church tells you otherwise, and you accept it, then you become part of the social milieu, people who are stuck in the matrix. You see, to get out the matrix, you have to recognize truth, and you can't be biased. You have to recognize truth. And black people, as long as you call yourself a Christian, you deserve to be called a nigger. You deserve to be called a jungle bunny. Because that's what Christianity was designed to do, to make you into less than what you are, to make you into a jungle bunny. And those people who call you that have every right to call you that if you are going to call yourself a Christian. And and if you have read Deuteronomy 23, then you know you are a Hebrew Israelite. But understand this. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, whether it is a duck or not, it's thinking like a duck. And it will always be a duck, whether it's a lion or whatever. As long as you think like a duck, you're going to be a duck. In essence, as long as you're going to think like a fool, you're going to be a fool. Now, I don't know why you would want to, there's no way on earth where I'm going to know that I am God's chosen people, a Hebrew Israelite, a Jew by blood, and I'm going to act lesser than what I am. I am not. See, if you call yourself a Christian, you are allowing white people to to control your mind. If you call yourself a Christian and you know that Christianity was used to enslave and colonize, you are a victim of your own ignorance or your own fear to be who you are. They give you a book, and it was cool because you couldn't read, so they could tell you anything. But now that you can read the Bible and think for yourself, you have no reason to call yourself a Christian or to call yourself a Muslim. And I can understand you being called a Muslim, being called a Christian, and then becoming a Muslim because you're trying to find you're searching for truth. And then when you understand that Islam sold who we are, sold us into slavery, then you know that that's not who you are unless you believe in selling your people. But then going back to reading the Bible, Deuteronomy 23 tells you that God's chosen people, the Hebrew Israelites, were sold all over the world and placed in bondage. Now, who is that? They are African Americans. Now, if you want to call yourself lesser than that, if you want to call yourself a Christian, then you might as well call yourself a jungle bunny or a nigger, because this is what Caucasians have been calling you. And until you change, this is what you're going to be. Don't expect change if you are staying the same. Do not expect change if you are staying the same. It doesn't make any sense. To evolve, you have to change. To evolve, you have to change. And as long as we call ourselves Christians, Muslim, or even Buddhists, we will be less than who we are. Because we are God's chosen people. And our teachings in the Bible is Hebrew Israelite history. And the Kabbalion is our spiritual guide. The Kabbalion is our spiritual guide. Or if you want to, you can call it a religion, because a religion is a belief system. So you can call it a belief system. But the reason why it's not a belief system is because it evolves. It keeps going. It keeps growing. And anything that grows is not stagnant. Religions are stagnant. They don't grow. You see, the more you learn, the more questions you have. And when you get answers to those questions, you evolve. That's the key to being a spiritual being. That's why we studied the stars. We studied astrology, medicine, everything on earth we studied, and we evolved. And then those things were usurped by Caucasians who are Neanderthals. And then it was misused, mischaracterized, and is used against us. Now, I'm gonna conclude. I'm gonna say this: for those who follow my channel, my subscribers, stay out of white folks' business. Stay out of it. This is a lesson that they must learn on their own. We have nothing to do with this. I want to say that Latinos complaining about why aren't we helping them? Well, the reason why they voted for Donald Trump is because they thought that what he's doing to them, he would do to us. The white farmers who voted for Donald Trump All of these people, knowing that he is a racist, thought that what he's doing to them, he would do to us. And now they're talking about us. And then Kendrick Lamar said, they are not us. They are not us. And Shadur Sanders is saying that something about the time, now is the time. They are not us. We need to realize that. And now is the time. Like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. I hope I wasn't all over the place.